All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Carissa. I'm the Content and Partnership Manager here at Horseman's Pride, and I'm very excited to be joined by Dr. Kirsty again. Welcome back, Dr. Kirsty, as we celebrate Anti-Boredom Month and talk about equine enrichment. As you guys know, Horseman's Pride is very committed to creating products that help kind of mitigate some of those behavioral vices that come from boredom, whether horses have to be stabled for a long time or they are on stall rest for any reason. We just try to come up with innovative ways for horses to engage in their environment and keep their minds and bodies stimulated. So while we also do stall supplies like your mounting blocks and stall gates and buckets, one of the key things that we like to focus on is equine enrichment. So I'm super excited to have Dr. Kirsty here to give a more professional insight into how some of these boredom busting toys and enrichment items can help and how they kind of play into not only the mental side of our horses, but also their physical well-being as well. So Dr. Kirsty, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Spryng, take it away.
Thanks, Carissa. Yes, I am so happy to be joining Horseman's Pride again to talk a little bit about enrichment as well as how that relates to Spryng. I am a board-certified equine surgeon. I worked at Oregon State University for 7.5 years and then went into private practice. I've done both small animal as well as equine private practice, and I currently work as a contract surgeon, so I go around to equine clinics as well as some small animal clinics and do surgery when I'm not working for Pet Vivo Animal Health with Spryng. I've been practicing for about 15 years now, almost 15 years. And so it's really nice to have both a balanced clinical workload along with working for Pet Vivo Animal Health, which produces both Spryng, and then we have a partnership with Precise PRP. So we focus on regenerative medicine as well.
Awesome. And can you just touch a little bit about how Spryng can kind of relate to in the sense to the equine enrichment side of things?
Yeah, of course. So Spryng is a naturally derived product that's made from collagen and elastin, which are two really important building blocks in healthy joints. And so they make up something called the extracellular matrix. And so Spryng can be injected directly into the joint in horses that have arthritis or are predisposed to develop arthritis. And once injected, it acts to restore the joint's natural lubrication and then also becomes incorporated into the synovium, where it encourages that body to rebuild that joint tissue in a healthier way. And so the goal is really to preserve and protect the joint before we get to a point where there's irreversible damage, so we can continue to keep that horse sound for as long as possible. Because we know that though a horse is not only physically fit, they need to be mentally fit as well. And so enrichment and whole horse care plays a role in their overall soundness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to kind of talk through some of these deeper questions and educate our other horse owners out there on things that they can do and symptoms to look out for these signs of boredom in their own horses and things that they can do to keep away those behavioral vices and keep them happy and healthy. So the first question I wanted to ask is, how can you tell if a horse is bored? Are there subtle signs owners might miss?
Yes, so boredom can look really subtle sometimes, and it can manifest in multiple ways that sometimes make it difficult to identify. We frequently think of things like stereotypical behaviors, cribbing, weaving, pacing, stall walking, which are, we commonly think of these as boredom behaviors, but we can also see things like repetitive yawning, just standing in the paddock or the stall with a glazed over look, pacing the same path up and down in a paddock or even a stall. They can sometimes chew on random objects. We've all had horses that chew wood, which can be very frustrating, and sometimes even excessive pawing. So sometimes the signs can certainly be very subtle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Following up to that, why is enrichment then so important, even for horses who aren't necessarily on stall rest? I think a lot of times horse owners think that, if they're getting turned out, it's that's kind of it, and they're good to go. But we often see that there's kind of a balancing act between, the physical fitness side of things and the mental enrichment side of things. They're not wild horses anymore, so they're not exploring all these big areas and having all these larger social interactions. So what kind of enrichment is important even for horses that are turned out on a regular basis?
Yeah, so like you said, horses are incredibly intelligent and social animals, and were basically evolved to travel long distances over the course of a day. And so, even when they're turned out, they can still develop boredom. So, it's important to make sure that their environment changes or challenges them in some way to kind of keep that boredom at bay. Because enrichment also keeps their minds active. So, not only do they need to have the ability to move, they need to have the ability to interact in a positive way, both with their environment as well as other turnout buddies that they might be with. And this can help prevent behavioral problems and even contribute to healthier digestion and muscle tone and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Spryng can play such an important role in just the physical side of it. So these horses that are getting turned out, they're feeling good. Hopefully their joints are feeling great. Horseman's pride can also come in ways. I think a lot of the times people think of our choices just being for the stalls, but a lot of our products like the Amazing Grays or even like our Jelly Hay Ball can be hung out outside in the pasture. So that's like another small thing I think that maybe some owners don't always think about, is just those tiny differences that they could add in the pastures as well. So really, really great insights. The next question I have for you are, what are some simple ways to provide mental stimulation during hot summer days?
The hot summer days. So I usually recommend doing any turnout or ridden work at less toasty hours of the day. So often either early in the morning, or turnout sometimes can be overnight, or getting your rides in later in the evening. And this maximizes the mental stimulation during those times of the day when we want to have them. And shade and hydration, though, are vital during our hot summer days. So we want to make sure that we maximize our enrichment, but not over strenuously exercise these horses when it's super hot outside. So things like puzzle feeders, hanging toys, like you mentioned, frozen treats even can be helpful on these hot summer days as well. Also, again, changing locations. If you have the ability to turn out in different different pastures or different portions of a larger paddock, can sometimes help if there's different scenery, or even if we have a few different turnout buddies that we can rotate with, that can help kind of with that mental stimulation. And then also doing things like grooming or groundwork when it's super hot and we can't potentially ride them. Those can also help to engage the horse without overheating them.
Yeah. On the topic of physical work, like groundwork, can boredom impact a horse's physical health?
Absolutely. So boredom can lead to stress behaviors, and those stress behaviors can lead to increased cortisol levels in the body, which we know a long-term increased levels of cortisol actually decrease our ability to fight off infections, and so it affects our ability to maintain a healthy body. And so, when we see stress behaviors that can include all the things that we talked about earlier, including cribbing, weaving, as well as things like fence pacing, biting, kicking, bucking. If you think of those horses that you see running up and down the fence line, these behaviors lead to increased cortisol levels that can then increase our risk of things like colic, gastric ulcers. Running up and down those pastures, wearing themselves out, can increase our risk for lameness or injury. So just like humans, horses benefit physically as well as mentally when they experience mental enrichment.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing to just recognize the similarities, how, us as mammals, humans, how, if we're depressed or feeling any kind of way and just, or under a lot of stress at work, like just how much that can actually manifest itself in our physical bodies. The same is true for our horses and our dogs and our cats at home. And I think that is something that people often overlook because, historically they were wild animals. But now that they've become domesticated, it's like these things will start to pop up, and it is important to kind of draw the similarities just to have a full understanding of how the systems all work together, just like our human systems do. My next question for you are, how do certain natural behaviors like licking and chewing actually help reduce stress?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Licking and chewing often occur after a horse processes information or when it transitions from a stress state to a more calmer one. So often I see licking and chewing if you're working with younger horses and they kind of start to understand what you're asking them. We also see these behaviors in other animals, but it's typically a sign of relaxation and mental processing, and something that we like to see when they're engaging positively with their environment. So these are the things that we want to see versus things like pinned ears, tail swishing, stomping, the activities or behaviors that may signal agitation. So licking and chewing usually is very positive behaviors that definitely indicate that we're engaging positively and are much calmer. So these are things we want to see for sure.
And something that's great that can be used for that is some of our salt snacks or our stall snacks.
Absolutely.
All right, my next question is, what types of enrichment do you recommend for different horse personalities?
So this is a great question. Each individual horse is different with their preferences, just like humans.
Mhm.
So it depends a little bit on the horse. So busy-minded horses might like, treat puzzles or toys that they can nudge and toss and kind of, walk around the paddock with. Whereas introverted or more anxious horses may like slow feeders or scent-based enrichment or things that are not overly like overbearing. But it's really about knowing your horse and experimenting with different methods of enrichment to kind of find out what they like and how often they like those things to be changed out and different things like that. So I usually recommend trying a bunch of different things, even homemade toys or, enrichment tools to figure out what your horse likes.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all different. And then next question I have for you on the topic of toys and enrichment are, which toys or enrichment items have you seen work especially well for stalled or easily bored horses or even horses on stall rest?
I have had several of these types of horses on stall rest in my career over the years. And so, I found things like Jolly Ball, hanging treat dispensers, if the horse can have treats, obviously, or scratch pads can be helpful. Some homemade toys I've had good luck with, like gallon jugs that you put oats or other noise making contents inside. Some of them like to chew on the jug. Some of them like to toss them around. Some of them like to just knock them around from the ceiling. Um, Honestly, though, it seems some horses get bored with their toys easily. And so I recommend rotating these things every 3 to 5 days to kind of keep things novel and interesting. Even moving them to a different space in the stall sometimes can make a difference. But I like to keep a little toy tack box outside of the stall. And so, it makes switching things out really easy. When you go to check on the horse that day or whatever it is that you're doing, you can just change some toys out and it makes it super easy and not a big task.
Yeah, perfect. Well, you also answered the next question, which is how often should those toys be rotated? So we'll just dive into our last question: is what do you think is the most overlooked benefit of equine enrichment?
So we talked a lot about how it benefits the horse and the horse's health, but I think one thing that it really, really, really is important for that we often overlook is how it can impact the relationship and the interaction between our horse and horse owner, or human and horse. So if you are making sure that you take care of your horse's mental stimulation, then when you are with your horse is going to be more relaxed, more mentally engaged, less reactive, and And so the time that you spend together or any training sessions will be more positive experiences for both human and horse. And this is really what it's all about, right? So having that good experience and spending time with our horse and knowing that they're healthier and less likely to engage in behaviors that may cause injury is definitely the best outcome from enrichment.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's not apples to apples, but horses are kind of like big dogs, where they both benefit equally, from having mental enrichment, and it does help just create that stronger bond, which is just so important for the lives of our animals, but also helps impact our own mental health around those things as well. So that's really awesome. And thank you so much, Dr. Kirsty, for all of your insights on that. Just wanted to see if you had any closing statements or thoughts around anti-boredom or any other additional things about Spryng that could tie into how it can play into that overall well-being of our horses, or where people can learn more about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say that enrichment is a key part of maintaining your horse's mental and physical health, because it reduces stress, it supports, healthy activities. It is important to be proactive and really pays off in the long term. So, whether your horse is just a backyard companion or it's a competition horse, taking small steps with enrichment on a daily basis can really help keep them engaged and make a huge difference in their health. And of course, tools like Spryng can help and support their joints from the inside out, where enrichment helps them from the outside in.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Beautifully said. And thank everybody for joining us today. And hopefully you gained some more insights and got some more ideas for enrichment for your horses. If you want to know more about Anti-Boredom Month and equine enrichment from our Summer Stables Day event, you can go to horsemanspride.com/summer-stables to find out more. And thank you so much again to Dr. Kirsty for joining me. I'm sure that we'll be seeing each other again soon to hopefully talk about more health and wellness for our horses. So thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you for having me.